Glad that you've joined us. KXEX 1550 AM. Please share with your friends. Let them know that we talk politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities, and anything you want to talk about. You can catch us on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, we got it. There's a place for you to listen, and you can listen at your leisure, not just at the times that we're on, which is Saturdays at 4, Sundays at 6. But I mean, you want to take a hike, take your headphones, you can listen to Powell to the People, and it's a great opportunity. Also, 5 days a week, Good News with Larry Powell at 10 and at 4. Nothing but good news stories Monday through Friday. And you want to hear something that'll boost your spirits for the day? Catch Good News with Larry Powell. That's also on Spotify. So if you want to hear about 4 or 5 stories while you're on your hike and feel good when you're done, catch Good News with Larry Powell. Today, I've got a very special guest and good friend, Skip Hanson, who is the co-founder and president of Lifelong Learning. And Skip and I have been friends for a long time. Skip, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. Looking forward to it.
Hey, listen, it's always good to have you. And we've spent a bit of time together, both professionally and on the golf course.
Yes, we have. I'm still amazed how you beat me every time, but that's okay. That's all right.
Listen, Skip's a great athlete, and I happen to always play him usually on my home course. So
that's true.
So that's an advantage. But Skip, you're involved in a whole lot of different things. Charter schools. You're a professional organization that provides services to charter schools, doing a lot of good things, and we're going to get into some of that. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about your history, because I know you worked in Fortune 500 companies and stuff before you got into this business, and you've done a lot of interesting things in life. So tell us a little bit about what's your history, what got you going out of college, and what were you doing?
Well, it's funny. I never thought I'd be in education. That's for sure. I graduated from college with a degree in psychology. Wanted to be a child psychologist, and then my professor asked me all these questions. Well, if your parents divorced? No. And have you had any really no? And he goes, well,
no tragedies. Huh?
It's hard sometimes to be a good psychologist if you can't share. I've been there, kind of thing.
Yeah, I
he
love
goes,
it.
But what you're really good at, you're a good sales guy.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, you ought to be in sales. So I spent most of my first probably 15 years with different companies selling products. In fact, I was, you see the show The Office?
Oh, yeah.
I was the original Office.
I love it.
Veneer Business Forms, we sold green bar paper, for those listening.
Okay, I
that
remember
are over
that.
the age of 60.
Yes.
Dot matrix printers with green bars.
Oh, yes.
Sold a ton of that stuff when I was a young man.
Wow.
And
when we ran out of green bar, we were in trouble.
Oh, you were. You were. In fact, I think, every company was, at the time, that was how they printed out anything.
It was.
Was the dot matrix printers.
Yeah. I still have some at home, but it's the copies of stuff that I did.
Correct. So I moved to Arizona with my wife to raise our kids, and ended up getting involved with a couple big companies, Microsoft and Compaq Computers. And we were selling the cloud before it was the cloud. It was called Application Service Provider,
that's interesting.
Which we were hosting up Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook on servers in Reston, Virginia, on what they called thin clients back in the day, which were just a computer with no guts.
Yes.
It was a mouse and keyboard and monitor. We were way ahead of our time. Again, there was no internet yet.
Yes.
And there was no Wi-Fi. So our product
That's hard for me to imagine.
Right.
You too, I'm sure.
It was really odd. We were selling it to small businesses that wanted to just say, I want this computer on the desk, but I don't want to have to update it every 2 years.
Yes.
So you'd have an always-on monthly subscription, computer that was working all the time.
Which makes sense.
But we had no answer for a guy with a laptop, because there was no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So we sold, I think we spent $220 million trying to sell these products and never got off the ground. So I ended up
a little bit ahead of time.
I ended up going to work for General Electric, where I got involved in Six Sigma process improvement.
Yes.
So I was a black belt looking at processes that were broken in our system.
That means you made a certain level that was at the highest level.
6 defects per million opportunities,
Wow.
which is what Six Sigma means.
Yeah.
So it was a mathematical thing that basically said if there's a if there's a million things that happen on a conveyor belt that can
Yes.
go wrong, we only can have 6, and that's considered perfection.
Oh, I love
So
it.
the only company to actually reach Six Sigma was GE Aircraft.
Yeah.
Motorola actually invented it, but thank goodness, because those engines that we fly with, we would expect Six Sigma
Yes.
process improvement. So
Now, you had a boss or the head of the corporation that was really well known.
Mr. Jack Welch.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And America knows him.
Absolutely. He was an interesting guy. The first time I got to meet him, he required all the GE companies to meet in a market every month. It was called BST. I don't remember what the acronym was, but we had to meet to share leads. He was so mad early on that we in plastics or transportation weren't sharing leads with light bulbs.
And why not?
Why
Yeah.
not? Right.
Yeah.
So we got in there. So I remember we were at a meeting. Jack Welch shows up unannounced. Right. The plastics guy is giving his report, and he's explaining that most of his customers were in El Paso, the maquiladoras that were selling to like Ryobi and all those guys.
Okay.
But this guy clearly said, I live in Texas. And Jack made a note, and afterwards, the guy's a friend of mine. He goes, Jack just told me I got to move to Texas, but in El Paso because I'm closer to my client. So he was the kind of guy that thought, hey, I'm not going to have one of my guys getting on a flight every day when all of his clients are over here.
Wow.
So,
which makes sense.
correct. So
he was an advanced thinker, no doubt about it.
Ahead of his time, for sure, and one of those guys that you wanted to follow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, just as a side note, you and I have known each other, I don't know, 15 years plus. I notice a lot of things you do as the head of your corporation have Jack Welch kinds of stuff in it.
It is. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah. You can see you've been influenced by that, which is really good because it's led you to an expansion that might not otherwise have happened.
Well, that's a good point. I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. I think if anything, the one thing I was just kind of taken aback by is applying Six Sigma quality improvement to education.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got in and I said, what a mess. There's no way it would even
Welcome
be
to
one
my
Sigma.
world.
Yeah. It's like we have a set of broken processes that start all the way from the very beginning of how schools get formed and how they run. So,
yeah. But it's been fun for me to watch, and my history of 43 years in education plus my retirement years of being involved in education and seeing it go. So I'm 50 plus years in this business, and to watch what you and folks have done with Learn for Life, lifelong learning, and all of those things is a perfect example of what can be done when you set your mind on not being stuck in the current mode, and how can we do this in a different way and do it better and serve the population that needs service, and you've done that, you've been able to accomplish that.
Yeah. I think so. I think when you don't come from the education world, there's nothing to say this is how you have to do it.
Right.
You sort of just look at it from a business standpoint and say, well, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not stuck in a rut.
No.
Yeah. Well, Dante Simi, your father-in-law.
Correct.
Yeah. Was one of the founders of Learn for Life. And he and I got to be friends, back in mid 2000s. 2006, or so, someplace around there. And it's been fun to watch that progression because he wasn't an educator either.
No.
So the two of you have taken and moved this whole idea of how do we serve kids in a different way and accomplish what we need to accomplish. And you've been able to do it,
Well, it was a simple concept for him. He wasn't an educator, like you said.
Yeah.
The friend that helped him get started in the little town of Lancaster, California, that had this original that they three of them came up with this idea was what was the one thing that made this school difficult for the kind of kids we serve, which are at-risk youth.
At-risk youth.
And it was time.
Yeah.
The idea that kids had to be in school 5 days a week,
6 hours a day,
6 hours a day,
of stuff.
works for many.
Yeah.
But not all. And what they found was pregnant teens, foster care youth, kids who got a girl pregnant, maybe have to work because their family needs the money. It didn't fit for them. So if you could design a school around their schedule, you'd have a home run there.
Pretty amazing. And I was an early adopter of charter schools, homeschooling,
Yes, you were.
other kinds of things. I've never been one that says we have all the answers. I just never liked that whole kind of attitude because kids are different, families are different, and all of them are taxpayers. So if you're a homeschooler, when I was county superintendent of schools here in Fresno, we provided services to homeschoolers. If they wanted to come to our in-services and learn something, come on.
Sure.
If you want us to help provide you some services, we'll do that as well. And so charter schools, which is a public school, is a natural outcrop of what we need to be doing, giving parents choice. And you know what? We're going to talk about choice and some of those things because you do give parents choice. And it's not just at-risk kids. It's a lot of really good, bright-minded kids that just are disaffected by public education the way we've been doing it forever. Well, listen, you're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Skip Hanson from Lifelong Learning.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
To the People, where civility is always in style. We're so glad that you've joined us. I've got a special guest, Skip Hanson, who's a good friend, co-founder and president of Lifelong Learning, a corporation that provides educational services and has done a great job. Skip, we've been talking about charter schools. We're going to talk a little bit about choice and parents having a choice of where their kids get their education. We know that a couple of things. If a parent supports what's going on in school, the kid learns regardless of how good the school is. That's
right.
An interesting thing. So you got to get the parents involved and make that work. But tell us a little bit about you service lifelong learning services. Learn for Life does a lot of services and things here in California, but you're expanding too. I want to get to the expansion, but where do you serve here in California?
Yeah, we're up and down the state, Sacramento to San Diego. The only place we're really not is the Bay Area.
Okay. That may be wisdom.
Yeah, it's a mess out there for sure.
Yeah.
But we, here in the Fresno area, we've got 6 locations, all the way from Hanford and Visalia to a bunch of schools right here in the Fresno area.
And Madera.
Yeah, so we got that. And then as you head down, we sort of cross over Miss Bakersfield for whatever reason. There's nothing there. But then starting up Lancaster all the way down L.A., San Bernardino down into San Diego, almost 82 locations just in the state of California.
Yeah.
And
are you the largest?
We're one of the largest. I think we're the largest in the at-risk space.
Okay.
But we're probably in the top 10 of charter school networks in the country.
Yeah, pretty remarkable.
I think we're 9, I think the last I looked. In terms of number of locations,
right?
Not number of students. We have more locations than some of the schools that might have more students.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Amazing. Well, and I love what goes on with charter schools, and in particular with Learn for Life. And I've been involved with you guys for a number of years now, and in fact, your first locations here in Fresno, I was involved in.
That's right.
As county superintendent, and I love what I was seeing. And anytime I get a chance to see where kids have a chance to live life and learn, that's a good thing.
You bet.
Because so many of them choose just to live life and not learn, so they drop out and they're gone. And one of the key cornerstones of the whole idea of Learn for Life early on was this. We'll get you back in school, and then we'll return you to school if you want. And
that's exactly right.
Man, that was powerful, when you think about it. So those school districts that said, I don't want a charter school here, you're taking my kids. You weren't taking their kids. Their kids were out of school.
That's right.
They weren't attending.
Well, in fact, our mission from the very first year was to get kids caught up and get them back to graduate with their friends.
Yeah,
that was the goal, was like get them back on track.
And think about this. If you can get a kid back on track with their classmates that they started elementary school with, they're going to graduate.
That's right.
If they're behind a year or 2 and some 3, they won't.
That's right.
And now you provide 2 kinds of things that I think are really good. One is getting them back to the school. The other is taking those kids that do not want to go back to the regular school
Or can't.
and can't for whatever reason, and there are a lot of reasons, but you keep them going on progress to graduation in the schools you offer.
That's right.
And it's not just, it's interesting, a lot of people have a concept of a charter school as an easy way out. That's not what it is at all. No, the kids still have to perform, they still have to learn, they still have to do all those, do all those things, but it's set up so if you've got a kid on your own, you're a pregnant teenager, you have your child, you often don't take them to your regular public schools. Although public schools try to offer some of those services, it's not the same. Tell us about the building and the model that you use, where you locate, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's a great question. We realized right away we're more of, in fact, I've been spending politically the last 2 years trying to recreate, rename what kind of school we are as a community school.
Yes.
Right? I think that's truly what
Which is
the definition
perfect.
of our school is.
Yeah, perfect.
And what is a community school? It's any school where the community wraps around the school in general. Now, that's not to say the community doesn't wrap around Clovis High, but it truly means that the kind of students that we serve that have all these unique needs, human trafficked young women, young
Which
people
is a
who are,
huge problem
it's
in
a huge
California.
problem right now. Huge problem in Fresno.
Yes.
So what do they need? They need security. They need help. They need sometimes police help because they're being targeted, by gangs or that kind of thing. So as a community school, we realized we had to be in the neighborhoods where these kids were, right? In the very first school we opened up, just by happenstance, we ended up in a really infested gang area, but our school became a safe haven for a lot of the kids.
I love
who
it.
maybe the older brothers were in a gang and wanted their younger brothers out. And so they called us a white zone in the gang world where we didn't get tagged like a regular school district might.
Exactly.
Because we were sort of left alone. And our schools were typically in strip centers, next to a particular hair cutting place and
shoe
whatever
repair shop
repair,
or whatever. A lot of folks coming there for services to the strip mall.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the reason we chose those was really by the fact that since we don't have buses, we wanted to be near the bus stops. And in the inner cities, if there's a liquor store on every corner, unfortunately, or a check cashing place, there aren't a lot of options. So we spent a lot of time opening up in boys and girls clubs as our school locations, or churches,
right,
where there was facilities that we could put our schools in the main area. And then the other thing we found is there was about a 3-mile radius for our kids, because a typical bus system, for you to go more than 3 miles would maybe 2 or 3 transfers was too much for a young girl,
they're not going to do
pregnant teen.
Right.
So we were quickly finding out that we needed to be in the city, in the middle of the neighborhoods, but we needed many centers, not one center in the center of town where you bust everybody into. So we started expanding, and really the way we expanded was by looking at the map of our kids, where they were coming from, and seeing we got 50 kids coming from East Fresno, so let's put a place in East Fresno.
It's perfect.
And we would do that. So that's how we ended up doing. So now we have, like I said, 80 plus locations in non-traditional spaces, not your typical what a school would normally look like.
And one of the side benefits of that is that strip mall had business coming to the school and to the businesses. So communities like they like having you in those strip malls. You energize the place. The businesses like it.
That's right.
It's not a negative with the kids hanging around, because a lot of the parents do take their kids to school. They then drop their shoes off at the repair shop, get their hair done, or do whatever they're going to do. So it's a win-win for the community as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is really cool. You've got a site here in Manchester Center, and our studios folks are here in Manchester Center. In fact, we're right over the top of your school.
We are.
We're just right next door. So we're on the second floor. Yes. And tell a little bit about when you designed how the school was going to look. It has a college feel to it.
It does.
And you took safety as one of the key cornerstones of, if you're going to have a good school, it's got to feel safe for kids. So tell me, what's it like when you walk in the doors of a school, one of your schools? What's it feel like for the kid and the parent?
Yeah, when our founders first started, they were talking to some kids before they opened up the school, and they talked about what they didn't like about going into the regular school. And
right.
for a kid with trauma, right, which is a lot of the kids that we serve,
Yep.
closed-in spaces is not a comfortable place for them. It creates
Yeah,
trauma for them.
it does.
You know, especially if you're in a room with other gang members or, you know, maybe feel
And
unsafe.
you know what might happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
So their space, even though it was in strip centers, they wanted, when you walked in, they wanted a giant window, right? So that right behind the front desk,
Yep.
which was a big part of our, you know, our success, was making sure the people at the front desk were friendly and
Yes.
customer service oriented, not
Yeah.
the little lady that's like, get your pass and go to the
In-N-Out
back.
Burger,
you know?
baby. Just like In-N-Out. Hi,
So
folks.
you looked into this window, and so did the parents, right? When they walked in, what do they see? They see kids sitting at desks in private one-on-one sessions with teachers
It's a
in an open
fantastic
environment.
look. Yeah.
And it played as a small environment when we got started, but now some of our schools, like the one here in Manchester Center, when
Yeah.
you walk in, it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's got wide open windows. There's an open space. You meet one-on-one with your teachers.
Yeah.
We don't have really classrooms.
Do you do tours?
We do all the time. We bring in folks from the legislature. We bring in other VIPs. We do a lot of tours with some of the folks that are interested.
Say a family is trying to decide if they want to go to a charter school. Can a family come and take a look?
Absolutely.
And be informed of what's going on?
We advertise on radio, TV, you name it. When they come in, the first thing that we do is just ask them, you know, what is it that's not working where they're at?
Yeah.
And then
cool.
we tell them what we do, and if it's a fit, great.
Yeah, and you know, you not only get curriculum, but you guys have expanded programs that kids can do. They can get certifications for Microsoft or other kinds of things as well.
Job training.
So you want to walk out of school at the end of your time there with a certificate or a diploma, and you also get a job.
That's right.
You can go straight to the world of work.
Well, again, through the idea of a community school, there are resources already in our community. In fact, right here in the mall is a work source center.
Yes, just
that
right down the
has
hall from
federal
us.
funds
Yeah.
that have been passed down through the state through what's called Workforce Innovation Act.
Yes.
And they have money to train 18 to 22-year-olds on how to get a job, and
Wow.
specifically some very specific trainings.
Perfect alignment right
Yep.
there. You know, folks, I can't believe how fast our segments go here. This was our second one, and we got 2 to go. But we're so glad that you're with us today. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. And I've got a special guest, Skip Hanson. We're going to be back and hear a lot more about what you can do with your kids or grandkids if you're just not quite working out in a public school. And I'm a public school guy in a regular public school. You can go to a public school called a charter. We'll learn more about that. Thanks for being with us. Be right back. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're so glad that you're with us. I've got a special guest, my friend Skip Hanson, who is co-founder and president of Lifelong Learning and doing some amazing things to help kids out. You know, you'd mentioned trauma in our last session here, segment that we did. You started early on in the trauma-informed world, so that you were training your teachers and your administrators how to help trauma-affected kids. I remember, for full disclosure, folks, I'm on the board, advisory board with Lifelong Learning, and absolutely love what they're doing. And I remember one of the in-services that you provided helped reframe how you think about dealing with kids who struggle.
That's right.
And trauma-informed instruction is fantastic because you have a patience and a knowledge that allows you to provide the service kids need when you get done with that.
You bet. In fact, you know, we've been doing this 20 years now. We're celebrating. This is our 20th year.
I know. I
doing this.
just celebrated that. That's pretty neat.
It is really neat. We've got a movie that just came out.
Want to talk about
we'll
that?
talk about that. But in the movie,
Yeah.
Dr. Drew is one of our folks that is in our movie, and he talks about trauma and what it really means and how it affects not only the kids that we serve, but the educators that are serving them.
Exactly.
I have so much respect for our teachers in all of our schools, right? I mean, the thing is our school isn't better or worse than Fresno Unified or Clovis Unified schools. We just do something a little different,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
the kids that are working out well in a traditional school, great. We want them to stay there. But
Love it.
but if you've got a young man or young lady who have experienced real trauma, we're talking human trafficking, right?
Yep.
That kind of a thing.
Yep.
Their frame of reference is completely different than a kid that
Sitting in 6 classrooms for
you bet.
45 or
You
50
bet.
minutes is hard.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
before we can teach math and reading, we have to deal with this young person's
Exactly.
life experiences that are keeping them from learning. Because you can have the best curriculum, the best teachers. It doesn't matter if what there's going on in their past, they can't learn it. You can't do it. So we have gone through some amazing training. We developed our own based on a science called ACEs, which is Advanced Childhood Experiences. Adverse childhood experiences, and we have trained our teachers on how to deal with it, not only personally but also in helping the student reframe themselves. So
Boy, you certainly change the way a student looks at school when they come in, and people know that there's a service there and an attitude of helping them no matter what their circumstance or background or history was.
Yeah.
It fundamentally changes everything.
Well, we have to do this. I just said this. I spoke at a conference just recently. We do not have a crime problem. We have an education problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of our crime is committed by people who dropped out of school. It's just the data's there. And the reason they drop out are all the things that we're trying to solve.
School dropouts and no dads.
No dads, the lack of family.
Yeah, which is trauma.
It is trauma.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this right now and you're wondering why your community is so infested with all kinds of crime, let's look right back to the major problem, which is education and lack of it for a particular group of kids who get off track.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we're trying to solve that community by community, dealing with these community schools, wrapping around them. The more kids that we catch, we're the last stop.
Yeah.
The more kids are going to get a high school diploma, become a job, become an earner,
yes,
and stay out of that cycle.
They become a taxpayer and they help pay my retirement.
You've been to one of many of our graduations,
oh, yeah.
Larry.
Yes.
We ask the same question every time in a graduation. Who here is the first in your family?
To
first
graduate.
in your family to graduate.
Yeah.
And it's 50%. At the very minimum.
One of the things that I really like to explain to people after being in education as long as I've been, every parent loves their kids. And whether you have money and resources or don't, doesn't change the fact you want your kid to be successful. So when we look at families in these graduations that are coming there and they're dressed in all kinds of different dress and things, but the one common factor is they love their kids.
Absolutely. So proud of them.
Oh, they're so proud. Yeah. And when they see their child get that diploma, the whole place goes crazy because it's interesting. They cheer for each other. Families that are in trauma and coming out of difficult circumstances, they cheer for other families that are going through that.
You bet.
It's an amazing thing. I would encourage anybody that's ever got a chance to go see one of the graduation ceremonies. Take advantage if you get invited. Go and see what happens and see the faces of these kids and hear their voices when they speak at graduation about what they went through to get to the point that they've got a diploma.
Yeah.
It's stunning.
Again, you've asked me this in the past. What's the one thing that's different about our school? If you've got a parent listening right now, and other than the fact that we serve kids that need something unique, the one thing that makes us different is the idea of time.
Yep.
We create a program around a student's time.
Yeah.
If they're pregnant or parenting, maybe they have a job full time, they can't go to school every day. We create a schedule where they can go Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Exactly.
Or let's just say they've got issues going on where they need help and they need to do it at a different facility. We'll bring a teacher to them.
Isn't that amazing?
And we'll do it. Again, it's just looking at it a little differently and solving a problem. When I went to college, my parents couldn't afford to do all of it, so I had a job. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I set my schedule on Tuesdays and Thursdays so that I could work.
I know the feeling.
And we have that with our kids.
And why wouldn't we be doing that with kids?
Correct.
Yeah, that are in high school. It's perfect.
The other thing that is a new phenomenon for us is not just at-risk kids. Since COVID, we've always had it, but it's more since COVID.
Yep.
Kids who are just choosing our school because we don't have 4 traditional boxes. that you require to go from freshman to senior, right?
Right.
It's all based on your work and how fast you can do it. So we have kids that'll graduate in 2.5 years.
Yeah, I love
just
it.
because they want to go faster.
And they're not necessarily kids that are at risk.
No.
They're kids that are choosing to go quickly so they can get on with life.
Right.
And they're bright. And I have a 7-year-old, he'll be 8 here shortly, grandchild, who is so smart. It's like he's so disaffected by school at times, and it's a good thing that his mom is a teacher, his dad is brilliant, all of them get along. They give extra, experiences, life experiences for him. His grandparents are all educators and stuff, so he's got resources that way. But he can get bored so quick because he's too bright.
Correct.
And when you teach to the middle or less, but you guys teach to the level the kid is at.
That's right.
And then help them get better.
That's right.
It's remarkable. You had mentioned a movie.
Yeah.
And folks, you got to listen to this, and you got to listen to when you might be able to see this movie. This movie is absolutely amazing. You're going into film festivals and things. Eventually, it'll be available to anybody.
That's right.
But tell a little bit about what is it all about?
So so again, I'm a sales guy my whole life, right?
Yes.
For the last 7 years, my job has been less about the running of the schools and more about trying to meet with legislators to try and promote programs like ours so that they keep these guys from passing laws to shut us down.
Exactly.
But it's political, right? It's a very political process.
It's the world we live in.
So, again, I needed a tool to help change hearts and minds. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So we had an idea of I saw the movie Waiting for Superman years ago. It affected me. I thought,
absolutely,
this is changing the narrative.
Yeah.
So I wanted one that talked about the narrative of our kids, trauma-informed kids that are having issues. And we came up with an idea to hire a guy that made movies, a couple of folks, and the idea was to follow some of our kids.
You affected his heart too.
We did. Yeah, this guy's.
I saw that.
The studio was called Creative Deviance, and they hadn't done any movies like this. But he came in and literally lived with some of our kids and their families for about 4 months. And
wow.
The movie unfolds, and I won't give it all away, but it follows 4 kids, and one of these kids ends up in a really tough spot in life, and you see it unfold on camera, but it's life, and we didn't handpick these kids. They were just sort of picked randomly, and because not every kid in our system makes it.
I've seen the movie 3 times, I think now, and I've been as affected at the 3rd time as I was at the first time, because you can't help but say, this is amazing what these kids go through and how they arrive at the other end after what they could I have done that.
Right.
I mean, it's my wife Dot is she loved that movie, and she said when you see Skip today, find out when we can take friends to go see it.
So the movie's called La Lucha, and that means the fight, and then it's Getting Schooled in America.
Yeah.
And it's currently right now going through all the film festival processes. So we already got invited, accepted, and won 2 awards already with the first 2 film festivals. We're hoping to get in the San Diego Film Festival in late February, and then we're making the run all the way through the rest of the country.
Now, the film festivals, can other people just go to the festival?
Yeah, we're going to be posting it,
so
all of our films.
Once that happens, folks, I'll let you know where it's available. And if you want to take a trip down to see the San Diego Zoo and then go to the film festival, that would be a possibility as well. So a lot of great opportunities. But you have a lot of student success stories. And I want to talk a little bit about that when we get back for our next segment. But my main goal here today is I want parents to realize that kids can get schooled in different ways and be successful. And if you're struggling and you've got a child that just does not like school, Learn for Life may be the answer for them, and a chance to change you as a family if you really investigate it. So is there a number or a lookup that they need to do to, I know Manchester Center.
Learnforlife.org. LEARN, the number 4, LIFE.org. No matter where you are in the state, you can type in that and put a zip code in and find out where one of our schools is.
Learnforlife.org. Learn4, number 4, life.org. And you can find a school near you and come in. We'd be glad to talk to you. I know your folks are great with parents that are struggling and trying to figure out an answer to something. We're so glad you're with us today. Third segment's done, folks. This is Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. And we're going to be back right after this commercial break with a good friend of mine, Skip Hanson, co-founder and president of Lifelong Learning. You'll want to hear the last segment. See you in a bit. Hey, you're listening to Powell to the People on KXEX 1550 AM. We're so glad that you're with us. We're in our fourth segment today. I can't believe how fast time goes when we're talking about issues like this. And I know so many families struggle, Skip. And I've got Skip Hanson, co-founder and president of Lifelong Learning, with me. So many families struggle. And you and I think, have the same affinity or hurt when we see a family struggling, because we know how good life can be when the kids are successful. And that's a part of our DNA, I believe, is to see a family make it and see a kid make it that didn't look like they could. And that's why I'm working with you guys and interested in what's going on, because you do, in a lot of ways, the Lord's work to get kids back into school. And it's pretty remarkable. Trauma-informed instruction, an open time so kids can come to school when they need to come to school, still do life, still be able to survive. You also provide, tutoring time, and so it's not just a come for a short period of time, go do your homework and then come back, but they can get a lot of other skills and sessions as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, again, the idea was originally find these kids, get them a high school diploma, and hopefully either send them back to the school that they came from to catch back up, or they stay with us. But we were still losing 20% of our kids at 18, 19 years old back to the streets, basically giving up. And we'd ask them, why are you giving up, Johnny? You only have 2 credits. My mom told me I got to get a job.
Yeah.
Right? It was the constant theme. So we started partnering with businesses that needed our kids, our young adults.
That partnership was critical.
It was, and it started off really on the tech side. So we created a Cisco lab that these kids could go in and take just like in college, this particular class. And when they got out, they had a certificate called Intro to Computers, and it was.
And these are high school kids that are getting the same thing you get when you're in college.
Yep. It got them the intro job to Geek Squad at Best Buy, right? So they could go out and help, set up computers and that kind of thing. It was our first
$27, $28 an hour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was that carrot that would allow us to tell that kid, hey, there's a point where you're going to want to give up, but don't, because when you graduate with us, you're going to have an opportunity to have a industry recognized credential to go out and get a job.
Yeah. And they can go into the graphic world too.
It was.
If they want,
and
on their own.
Let me tell you this. I'm severely ADHD. I found that out the last couple of years.
I would never have known that about you, Skip.
Squirrel, there it is. I have great ideas. And but I know now, looking back at my education, why I was in a classroom. I was bouncing off the walls because, and if you're a parent or a grandparent out there where you've got this child that you can see is just struggling in a regular classroom, ADHD is a real deal now. We have I would bet a third of our kids are on some sort of that part of it. You will not do well 6 hours a day, 5 days a week trying to, sit in a classroom.
There's no way.
But in our world, right, you can make a schedule that fits it. And when you start getting antsy, you can get up, go into the mall, come back, they're,
exactly.
Mom and dad, play a huge role in what we do.
And you provide tutoring to folks, so if they want to take a break and then come back, you also provide counseling. You provide this is a one-stop shop in a lot of ways.
It is. It's different in that we are trying to fill all these voids of various things that, again, the traditional school was never built upon, and nor should they be. They're trying to serve the norm.
You had mentioned earlier partnerships, boys and girls clubs, and those kinds of things. You do a lot of partnerships with groups that are already working with kids that are struggling as well, and that's a really important part of the success story that happens. And speaking of success stories, you have a lot of students who have really gone on to be really good. You
Well, I'm
know?
going to be in Washington, D.C. in about a month and a half. I'm going to visit one of our former students. She's still at the White House. She chose our school to graduate in less than 3 years,
Amazing.
Eunice, and she went to UCLA, got a degree, ended up is still working for the White House, right? She's just another one of those success stories. Look, there's 100,
Yeah.
thousands of them. This year we'll serve some close to 50,000 students this
Wow.
year across all of our network in 5 states. We talked about
Yeah.
that: Michigan, Ohio, South Carolina, Texas, soon to be 2 or 3 other states. Arizona just passed a law
Yeah.
allowing parents to choose where they spend their money on education, and Iowa is right behind them.
Parent choice of where a kid goes to school. And you know what? I'm not afraid of that as a regular public school educator, because what it means is I just have to make sure I'm
Gotta
doing
work
a
hard.
great job.
That's right.
You know, and if I'm doing a great job, you know what? They're going to come. They will come.
And if you're not, they will
will go.
not, right? I mean,
Yes.
I know it's scary to give parents choice. I think that's the scary part.
It
Like,
is.
what if this parent doesn't know anything? Well, the good news in our world with the internet and
Streaming.
every restaurant I go to, I check the Yelp
Exactly.
reviews, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same, going to be the same in Arizona with education. Parents will just check things to see if this is a good school,
Absolutely.
and the system will decide whether or not they stay or go
It
based
will.
on they
Will.
will. Yeah.
Hey, listen, we vote with our feet.
Yes, we do.
You know? And if we like a place, we're going to go there. If we don't, we're going to leave
That's
it.
exactly
and,
right.
And that happens. And I've got to tell you, a lot of really good things are taking place. By the way, your CEO is a local guy, Pete Faraja,
Yep.
who was the superintendent in Riverdale. Great thinker, good man, has a heart for kids as well. And one of the things you've done with hiring people is, you're not hiring seconds. You're hiring top-notch. Kitty Catania, who was a county superintendent, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent is what it was officially. Remarkable lady. And you've hired people with the heart for kids, but also incredible knowledge. They know how to help those kids be successful. That's remarkable.
Well, we are a nonprofit, but that does not mean we're not a corporation, right?
Yeah, right.
It means we don't have retained earnings. We
Yes.
give it all back to the system. But I learned right away, if we run this like a business first and
Yeah.
not a school,
Yeah.
first a business, which means you got to make sure you pay the bills. You got to make sure you hire good people.
Number one, hire good people.
We pay our folks well. We hire the best. We give them the tools they need, and we get out of their way.
Yeah.
That's Jack Welch's motto all the time. And unfortunately, for many people in GE, he would fire the bottom 10%.
Yeah.
If you weren't making it, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't a snuff. It was, hey, for us to be one of the best companies, we got to have the best people. And if you're not
Absolutely.
pulling your weight, it's time to go.
Well, and if your evaluation shows that you're below level that you should be at, energize yourself, get trained, do more. You can do it.
That's right.
But a lot of people just choose not to.
Well, we're fortunate enough. We hire teachers that maybe have had a couple years in a traditional classroom and
Right.
deal with the classroom management, all that good stuff. When they come over to us and they really want to work with this kind of population of kids, it's their life mission. They love what the work they only have 35 to 40 kids on their caseload, so they really get to follow these kids from all the way through graduation.
You and I have talked about this before, but the students talk about how the teacher knows them and loves them. There is no doubt that is a relationship that is critical to that student's success. And when I look at the teachers, and I've had a chance to speak to a lot of your teachers. In fact, one of my nieces works for you guys and is a teacher. And I mean, she's thrilled to be able to see the impact she's having with these kids. It's changed her life because she gets to see the impact immediately and know what's going on, in their lives. It's really exciting. I'm thinking about, are there employment opportunities for folks to come to work for Learn for Life? How do they go to the same website to check it out?
Yeah, there's a national system, or I should say a state system called EdJoin in California.
You're on that.
We are on it, so you can go and our schools locally here are called Crescent View Charter Schools here in the Fresno area. So we are are really hurting right now to find good teachers because it's been difficult over the last couple of years.
COVID has just
COVID really tough.
racked
Yeah.
us.
But yeah, we are especially special needs teachers. We're struggling
Yep.
mightily to get some folks with speech therapy, some of those kinds of things. So
Yeah,
I'd
right.
love to get some.
And regular schools have the same struggles, so
Yeah.
it's a tough thing. But I'll tell you, I've not run into one person who didn't like working at Learn for Life.
Yeah.
Schools. You become a part of they become a part of the corporate spirit of we're making a difference. We're changing the trajectory of life for a lot of families, not just the kid, but the family gets changed. And then you're seeing brothers and sisters follow and come in.
Yeah.
Because they saw the success in the
Well,
family.
one of the advantages we have in the model that you described, right, where we're in a strip center or a boys and girls club, is just from the business standpoint, going back to the businesses, we don't have the same kind of expenses that a traditional school with playgrounds and busing and all the things that go around to managing. So that same amount of money we get to use to put towards services right back around the kid. So imagine you're a teacher and you've got all these other resources that we can afford because we're putting them back around them. It makes it a lot easier as an educator.
It's amazing.
To do your job when you know you've got a backup as 4 tutors over there to help you when the kid leaves you. They're going to walk over to some tutors that the student is going to help them with their homework, which is what every teacher, in any world is like, hey, you got to get your homework done.
You got to get it done.
We're there helping them.
Well, we're down to 45 seconds, Skip. You've been listening to Skip Hanson, co-founder and president of Lifelong Learning, and a good friend of mine. And you got 15 seconds. Tell me something.
I will just say I am more excited than ever about where we're headed in education because of COVID, believe it or not. It's created a new idea of how learning can actually happen, and it's opened up the eyes of parents about the importance of being involved in their kids' education.
Yeah.
That is exciting to me because I'm going to see this change for the next decade.
Parent choice. COVID actually did us something good, which is hard to believe. Listen, so thankful you've been with us, Skip. Thanks for joining us today. And folks, check out that learn4life.org. And you can learn a little more. And we're so glad you've been with us today. By the way, share Facebook and Spotify and all of those. Let other people hear this good news of Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're so glad. Join us again next time.